Maya Williams never knew what a hug felt like. Growing up in an orphanage from the age of 5, she was taught to be independent. Love was something she could only see in movies or read about in books. But even then, it seemed so far out of her reach. Her childhood was a blur of foster homes, each more temporary than the last. At 22, she was still that orphaned girl, never quite fitting in. She worked 2 jobs, one at a local diner and the other as a cleaning assistant at a small ranch on the outskirts of town. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep her head above water. She was used to being alone, used to not having anyone to lean on. Her coworkers at the diner were kind, but even their smiles never truly reached her. One cold winter evening, as she wiped down the counter in the diner, an elderly woman noticed her, a soft smile playing on her lips. The woman's name was Evelyn, and she had been coming to the diner every evening for the past few months, sitting alone by the window with a cup of tea. "How's your day going, Maya?" Evelyn asked, her voice soft but warm. Maya paused, a smile barely lifting her lips. "Same as usual. Nothing special." Evelyn studied her for a moment. "You know, dear, you've got the weight of the world on your shoulders. You don't have to carry it all alone." Maya's gaze dropped to the counter. After a few seconds, Evelyn's voice broke through her thoughts. "There's a ranch on the outskirts of town, Clayridge. The owner's a man named Samuel Clay. He's been through a lot. Lost his wife years ago, doesn't speak much. But if you're looking for work, he might be able to offer you something." Maya didn't think much of it at the time, but later that week, after a long day at the diner, she found herself standing in front of Clayridge Ranch. The gates were large, intimidating, and silent. Everything about the place felt like it held secrets that were buried deep in the land. The man who answered the door was exactly as Evelyn had described. Samuel Clay was a widower in his early 50s, with a weathered face that seemed to carry decades of pain. His deep-set eyes never smiled, and his hands, rough from years of ranching, never trembled. There was something about him that made her feel like an intruder. "You here for work?" Samuel asked in a low voice, his eyes scanning her face before moving to her hands. "Yes," she answered, her heart racing in her chest. "Evelyn told me you might need help around here." The ranch was quiet. Maya could hear the distant sound of wind whistling through the trees, but there was no laughter, no sound of life. It was as if the entire ranch had been frozen in time. Over the next few weeks, Maya settled into a rhythm on the ranch. She cleaned the stables, took care of the animals, and helped wherever Samuel needed her. But despite the work, she felt like an outsider. Samuel never spoke to her much, only offering a grunt or a nod when she passed him. He was kind in his silence, but there was an invisible wall between them, one she couldn't seem to break. One evening, as Maya was feeding the horses, she noticed Samuel standing by the fence, staring out into the vast emptiness of the fields. The setting sun bathed him in a warm, golden glow, but there was a sadness in his posture that made her heart ache. She didn't know why, but something inside her pushed her forward. "Is there something I can do for you?" she asked softly. Samuel didn't turn to face her, but his voice was low and heavy when he spoke. "My wife, ... She loved the horses. She used to come out here with me every day, help me take care of them. She's gone now." The silence is the hardest part. Maya swallowed the lump in her throat. "I'm sorry," she whispered, feeling the weight of his grief. Samuel's gaze never wavered, his eyes fixed on the horizon. "I've built this place from the ground up, but it's nothing without her. I lost her, and I lost myself." Maya's heart clenched. She understood that feeling. Losing someone, losing something, and never knowing how to find it again. I know what it feels like, she murmured. To feel ... lost. But maybe we're not meant to go through life alone. Samuel was silent for a long time, the only sound, the wind rustling through the trees. Finally he turned to her, his eyes soft yet distant. Before Maya could respond, he turned and walked away, leaving her standing alone in the fading light. That night, after her chores were finished, Maya lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. She didn't know why Samuel's pain felt so familiar to her. She had always felt abandoned by the world, but somehow she couldn't shake the feeling that Samuel was more like her than he realized. The days following that evening were a blur. Maya kept to her chores, trying to avoid thinking too much about Samuel and the empty sadness that clung to him like a shadow. She tried to convince herself it wasn't her place to break through his walls. He didn't want help. He didn't want her. But, as the days wore on, she began to notice things. Small gestures. A quiet look exchanged when they passed in the barn. A slight nod when she offered to help. Samuel's silences weren't filled with disdain. They were filled with the unspoken pain of a man who had buried his heart too deep to be reached. Maya felt it. She knew it. One morning, after weeks of careful observation, she decided to confront it. She walked into the barn to find Samuel standing by the hay bales, his hands rough against the wooden beams. His back was to her, and for a brief moment she hesitated. But she knew this was the moment she couldn't walk away from. "Samuel," Maya called softly, "I can't help you if you don't let me in." He didn't turn to face her at first, and she thought for a moment that he wouldn't respond. But then his voice broke the silence. "You don't know what it's like," he said, his tone so quiet that Maya almost didn't hear it over the sounds of the wind. Maya felt the sting of his words, but she didn't pull away. "I may not know what it feels like to lose someone like that, but I know what it feels like to never have had someone, to always feel like you're invisible." Samuel paused, his shoulders stiffening as if he were trying to hold back a wave of emotion. "I'm not invisible," he muttered. His eyes, usually so guarded, held a flicker of something vulnerability. The walls he had built for so long were starting to crack. "I didn't mean to shut everyone out," he confessed. "But when she died, I felt ... empty. I didn't know how to live anymore. And now, I'm afraid I've forgotten how." Maya's heart broke for him. "You don't have to carry this burden on your own." He looked at her, uncertainty in his eyes. "You don't know what you're asking." "I'm asking you to let me help you," she said, her voice unwavering. "Not because I think you need fixing, but because I think you deserve to feel something again. You deserve to heal." There was a long pause, the sound of horses in the distance, and the rustle of hay filling the air. Then, to Maya's surprise, Samuel stepped forward, his face softening as he stood just inches away from her. "I never thought I'd feel again," he murmured. "You don't have to," she said softly. "Just let yourself feel for once. Let it be messy, let it be painful, but let it be real." For a moment, the world felt still. Samuel reached out, and Maya's breath caught in her chest. And for the first time in a long while, Maya felt something she hadn't in years. It wasn't a hug. It wasn't the warmth of a full embrace. But it was something. It was a step toward healing, toward allowing herself to trust again. "I don't know how to fix this," Samuel whispered. "You don't have to," she whispered back. "We just have to start somewhere." As the days passed, Samuel and Maya began to find a rhythm. their bond growing stronger with every moment shared. They spent hours working together on the ranch, fixing the barn, caring for the animals, and even sharing quiet meals in the kitchen. There was still a distance between them, a space filled with unspoken emotions, but it was no longer an insurmountable wall. One evening, as the sun set over Clayridge, Samuel and Maya stood together by the fence, watching the stars emerge in the sky. Samuel spoke, his voice rough but sincere. "I'm sorry," he said, his words heavy with regret. "For everything, for shutting you out, for pushing you away." Maya smiled, the warmth in her heart growing. "You don't have to apologize. You're not alone anymore, Samuel. You're never going to be alone again." That night, for the first time in years, Samuel fell asleep without the crushing weight of loneliness. And for the first time in her life, Maya felt what it was like to be held, truly held, even if only in silence. The weeks that followed were transformative. Samuel and Maya found themselves talking more, sharing their lives, their stories, and their wounds. Samuel never spoke of his wife in the same way again. Instead of the sorrow that had once consumed him, there was a quiet acceptance. And with that acceptance came the realization that love was never something to be feared. One evening, as they were finishing up their chores, Samuel turned to Maya. "I never thought I'd get to feel this again," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You've taught me that it's okay to let someone in, to feel." Maya stepped closer, her heart racing. "And you've taught me that it's never too late to be loved." In that moment, Maya knew that love wasn't always about grand gestures or perfect timing. Sometimes it was about two people finding each other in the quietest of places, learning to trust, and knowing that even in silence, love could speak volumes.